Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Monday, the 10th of June, comes to you from London. And we start by looking at the dollar index. Still bearish last week, and it's recovering a little bit, but still bearish below the cloud. We may find support here on the lagging line on the medium-term chart. We do have a couple of downside targets that have crept in, so we are just seeing that spectre of a weaker dollar. The job numbers not so strong on Friday didn't help. So looking at the euro, that's looking stronger against the dollar. We had 5 downside targets, you might recall, on the 60-minute chart. We've now only got 3, and we've got a new upside target. So that's just turning the tide a little bit in the euro's favour, but again we might hit resistance here on the cloud. Looking at dollar yen, which is really a good heads up for the dollar chart, it tends to be a lead indicator for the dollar. We are seeing actually the dollar is recovering against the yen and looking a bit stronger, so that does play in the favour of the US dollar. Looking at sterling against the dollar, sterling has been stronger this last week against this weaker dollar, but interestingly it's still pretty bearish on the medium and long term. Big downside targets still hang over sterling, but also we do have no clear short-term downside targets for sterling, so we're just teetering along really, waiting for the next big event. Looking at euro sterling, fairly flat, declining on the long and medium term, but short term it's just slightly weaker than the euro. And against the Swiss franc, we're sitting at 126 again, just bumbling along the bottom. Taking a look at Bitcoin, we're sitting at $7,700 on Bitcoin. Short term bearish, but medium and long term, well, the medium term is bullish. Does look like it's running out of steam a little bit here, looking a bit toppy. And the long term chart, we've still got work to do to get back into bullish territory. You'll note we've got downside targets here for Bitcoin, no clear upside targets, so that is a bit of a worry. Keep an eye on the 1 minute chart if you're trading the cryptocurrency. US stock market ended up with a better week last week. Here we see the weekly candle, quite a strong week in the end. There was a fair amount of turmoil in the week at the start of the week, but we've recovered quite strongly, and that's created a surge. We said on the US market, though, that we do need to hold this low that we've seen early this month. Otherwise, that will be a sign that we're seeing that lower low, and significant that we found support here. If we fail again at that level, then that will be significant. And looking at the Dow, much the same picture here as well. We bounced strong week, almost an engulfing candle there on the weekly chart, so a strong week, but again we need to hold that level, otherwise the lagging line will come through the cloud and that will be bearish. And the Russell 2000, the weaker index, this is the broader based US index, but interestingly a really clear failure to make a new high, and this lower high at the moment is quite concerning for the market. Again, we might just be finding support here. We're back into bullish territory. The futures this morning looking quite strong, so it does look like the recovery will continue for US stocks, up 1/3% on the S&P and about a similar amount on the Nasdaq E-mini, so it does suggest that the US market will open slightly higher. We're seeing the FTSE up 0.5% this morning in the UK. That's looking pretty strong now on the short-term chart. We do have an upside target to around 4%, but we do have downside pressure again. If we make new lows on the FTSE, that would activate this downside target of 11%. We're not doing that at the moment. We need to make new lows below that level that we saw. This 7,000 level is pretty critical for the FTSE 100. Taking a look at the midcaps, the 250 we're seeing is looking pretty strong. The DAX is also recovering quite strongly, and the CAC 40 up 0.5% this morning. So we are just seeing markets generally pushing higher. Japan was up 1.4%. Hong Kong was up 2.3%. That's quite a big surge in Hong Kong. Looking like their rout is now over, and we're back to bullish above the cloud on the short-term chart, but certainly not out of the woods in the medium and long term. Shanghai Composite was up just under 1%. Not enough really to change the picture on this chart. It's still looking pretty bearish on the Chinese stocks. The Sensex up 0.2%, so that's edging higher. Good upside targets continue to dominate there, and the Aussie market up just under 1%. Brent crude is up this morning. We're back to 63.50, so we're looking a bit stronger. We're up 1/3% this morning. Not enough to change the medium-term bearish picture, but we are starting to look a little bit better on the short term. A shortage of upside targets though for Brent. So quite hard to call at the moment. And WTI, a similar picture as we might expect. We do have an upside target to 4.5% higher here, so that could be a good indication there. Taking a look at US nat gas, we're sitting at $2.33. We're really just edging lower all the time here for nat gas, making multi-year lows. We look at the weekly chart. That's really highlighted here in the weekly chart. We haven't seen these levels since 2016, where we went below that $2 mark. Looks like we could do the same again this year. Taking a look at gold, fallen back quite sharply this morning, down 1% with market sentiment improving. The gold prices come off, and we are just back to short-term bearish, although we did have a big run in gold last week. We see here the multiple days where we were up quite significantly. Last week's candle, very strong indeed. Probably the strongest week we've seen in gold for a good couple of years, actually. So interestingly, we've broken out, but we are just pulling back to that resistance. Is what was resistance is becoming support. We are just here back through the cloud. We still do have this target to the upside of 1434, which is 8% higher and would really activate all these upside targets. So it's not over yet for gold. Silver up down 1.6%. It's been hit harder this morning. And US 10-year yields sitting at 2.13%. So we're seeing here quite a significant move there as well. But US 10-year yields still struggling. And the Bund we're seeing here in Germany, we're holding on to those big rises off the ECB announcement last week. Taking a look now at the individual stocks, we'll just have a quick look at what happened on Friday in the US. The Dow was up very strongly. We had Microsoft leading the pack, up 2.8%. Tech really did lead the surge higher. Microsoft moving to new all-time high, and Apple also looking quite strong as well. They were up 2.6%. Intel up 2%. So a lot of this was tech-led, so quite key there. Taking a look at the Nasdaq 100, we had obviously the tech surge, and we saw some quite big moves here. Workaday up 3.6%, Illumina up 5.3%. A lot of tech stocks now looking quite a lot better, so that's quite significant. On the downside, we only had a handful of stocks. Tesla looking really worrying now. Down at 204. We did say on Tesla that if they move through 250, that was the support level that we saw. That was bearish, but we're down even further on Friday. So we have recovered off a low there for Tesla, but looking at the chart, we more than underperformed the market by half. So really significant there. Taking a look at the Aussie market, was up 1%, remember. So just looking at we had Grain Corp, they're up again quite sharply, but not enough to really change the chart. Beach Energy up nearly 5% as well. Quite a lot of stocks surging in the Aussie market. And we see here the relative performance pretty strong still. Taking a look at China, China wasn't that big a rise. We saw bigger in Hong Kong. And if we look at the Nifty 50 in India, still probably the best solid looking market in Asia. We see here Bharti and Patel, they're up 2.8%. They've featured quite a lot in the leaders board, but this chart is still, it's almost like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. The chart not looking great. Tech Mahindra, they're looking quite strong on the long term. Short term still has work to do. And Industrial in Bank is also looking quite strong, up 3%. Tata Consultancy Services were up 2.5%, and the worst performer was Yes Bank, and they're again often in that leader or laggard board, but lurching lower for Yes. We see the big move down, another move down, and downside targets, and we're seeing the relative underperformance there, so not that great. Taking a look at the Aussie market, the UK market. We start by looking at the top 100 in the UK. BAT's up 3.4%. The chart actually holding on to its medium-term bullish position, but has underperformed over the last couple of years. Just starting to change that this year, so it's looking a little bit better. TUI Group. They've had a terrible couple of years as a stock. They're 40% underperforming the market, but they are up this morning. Looking at the downside, we've got Hargreaves Lansdown down a further 3%. The Woodford debacle has really hit Hargreaves Lansdown, and they've surrendered 20% outperformance this year. Straight away, they're down to 5% underperformance. That really has had a big impact. We've now had a downside target of 38% lower activated, so not good for them. M&S down 1.3% this morning. We are just seeing quite a lot of retailers hit there, and there we see the live updates coming through from Yahoo Finance. Taking a look at the 250 this morning, the best performer, Millennium and Copthorne Hotels, massive jump there, and Games Workshop also up 5% as well. Just Group have had terrible performance of late. They've actually just up this morning slightly. Taking a look on the downside, Ted Baker, the worst performer, down 5%. Their woes continue. And Woodford Payton Capital Trust, again, down another 5%, the 7% this morning. Metro Bank, down another 4%. Their woes continuing as well, having underperformed the market massively over the last couple of years. Really looking quite low there. Taking a look at Europe now, just the major stocks in Europe. The Stocks 50, Sanofi, the best performer on Friday. This morning we're just slightly mixed on Sanofi. Here we see the live updates coming in. And the worst performer, SocGen, as well on Friday. So we're seeing this morning they're up 1%. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.